I'm Andrew. I've done variants of this talk a couple of times before, and the most interesting thing has usually been the bit at the end where you ask me questions about the content that I didn't prepare. So I'm just going to really smash through all of the background stuff. My dad taught my sister and me BASIC when I was 7, and I made terrible, terrible games when I was at school. And then I went to university thinking that I was going to become a doctor. But that didn't work out, and I didn't get into second-year medicine because I developed a passion for applied combinatorial mathematics in my first year. So I switched to neuroscience, and I learned a lot about brains, and brains were really cool. I did an honours year, and I picked up my first computer science paper on artificial neural networks. And my thesis was through the zoology department, where I was supposed to collect recordings from shark brains, specifically the olfactory neurons. There were a number of problems. Most of them were caused by me, and I didn't get any usable data. So with a couple of weeks left in the project, I cobbled together a shark simulation and made up my own data. And my RoboShark performed a variety of smell-based tasks, and I collected a lot of data and drew some vaguely plausible conclusions about real animals, and I resolved never again to work with real animals. But that neural networks paper was a real eye-opener, so I started a PhD, split between psychology and computer science, building a neural network model of human motor control. I also bought a PlayStation 1 and a third-party cartridge that let me do homebrew development. A couple of years later, armed with some PlayStation 1 example code and a very healthy Castlevania save game and 0 PhDs, I got a job at She Interactive in Wellington, where I worked on Rugby League 2 and Jackass for a couple of years. Then I went to Norway and made Flash adver games and walked and saw fjords and lots of lovely things like that. And I had a couple of very, very dodgy bosses. And so after the second company went under, I moved to London and started work at Rocksteady, making Batman games. And at Rocksteady, I was the programmer in charge of UI, hard mini-games, forensics, and I programmed the Mr. Freeze boss battle in Arkham City, which, yeah, I'm not joking, it will appear on every single result you get if you search for best ever boss battles Mr. Freeze. I also got married and we had 2 kids, and those are not lifestyle choices that are especially compatible with AAA development. So 3 years ago, I came back to New Zealand and rejoined She Interactive, except it wasn't called She Interactive anymore, it was called PikPok. And most of my time back has been working on Rival Stars college football. Oh, why are there white bits around there? It's a stats and tactics-based American football game for mobile, and one of my main focuses in that project has been the AI. So, making an AI that can beat a human player is often pretty easy, especially in games that heavily feature probability or physics, because humans naturally aren't very good at probability or physics. But except for a few of the most masochistic or elite players, most humans don't actually want to be thrashed by a robot, especially a robot that thinks in alien ways that they can't understand. Players generally want to feel like they're playing a human opponent, and then they want to beat them. So today I'm going to talk about a few non-technical principles and lenses that can be used to create more compelling AI that gives the impression that it is thinking like a human. Unfortunately, I was unable to secure permission to talk about or to prepare content relating to any of the Batman games. So the points I'll be making will be a combination of insights from Rival Stars and generic AI concepts that can apply to any third-person action-adventure caped vigilante game. So I'll start with something really general and also really important, in my opinion. Then I'll cover some American football basics so that I can move on to talking about how we approached AI and rival stars and hope to make some sense. I'll follow that with some general AI considerations for action-adventure games, and then some boss-specific stuff. Then I will tie it all together in a way that makes sense, or you can eviscerate me with questions if I don't. So, the most important thing, in my opinion, when making a fun AI, is that AIs should seem like they're playing fair. And ideally, they should seem like they're fair playing humans. Players hate when AIs cheat. If you're playing an RTS against a bot and you build a base in a really, really sneaky location, you expect to be able to surprise the bot. But if the bot makes a beeline for your base with exactly the right units that it needs to overcome your defences, that sucks. If you're playing a fighting game against the CPU, you expect the AI to respond to your attacks, and potentially to respond faster than a human player could. But if the AI seems like it's reacting to your inputs, responding to your attacks before the animations even start, that sucks. If you're playing a digital trading card game against a simulated opponent, you expect the AI to play fair. If the AI seems like it's looking at your hand or rifling through your deck or rearranging the cards in its own deck and just seems to magically have the ability to always draw exactly what they need at exactly the right time for the thing that you haven't played yet, that sucks. The important thing here is whether it seems like the AI is cheating. So you can create a really, really clever AI that follows completely reasonable rules about what information it can access. And because you're awesome, the AI makes predictions that consistently catch the player out. If the player can't understand why the AI is making those decisions, they're likely to assume that the AI is cheating. And that's the bit that sucks as a developer, because you put all of this work and all of this cleverness into making a good, fair AI, and you still get accused of cheating. So, before I talk about our American football AI, I need to quickly cover American football. Because when I was growing up in New Zealand, the prevailing narrative was that American football is just rugby, but with combat armour, and a child-sized ball, and a little break every couple of minutes so everyone can get their breath back. Similarly, Aussie rules is just rugby, but with hot pants and punching. In the former case, there's definitely a bit more to it than that. So the aim of the game is to score points by getting the ball to the other end of the field, or by kicking the ball through the uprights at the end of the field. And the teams are huge, like around 50 players per team, 11 of which per team will be on the field at once. And the players specialise really early in their careers into an offensive or defensive role that calls for like really diverse skill sets. And it sounds a lot like my sort of game because, yeah, there's just so much class-based stuff. You've got your burly tanks, you've got your sharpshooting passers, you've got your evasive runners, you've got one guy who just comes on the field to kick the ball and then goes back off. In a loose sense, each defensive player marks one offensive player. And successfully making yards up the field comes down to picking the right play. They look really complicated, and they are. It's right play at the right time and having your key offensive players outplay their defensive rivals. We had to ban the word player during development because it just got so confusing. So we differentiated between athletes on the field and users who played it. We didn't even play the game. We had users playing the app, athletes playing the match, even though match is not an American football term. It's not actually relevant to this. But at any rate, you now all know more about American football than I did when we started working on Rival Stars. Speaking of which, it's a coach level game. It's a very simplified version of the real game's rule set. You field a team of just 5 offensive players and 5 defensive players, each of which has their own proficiencies and special skills. and you choose 8 plays that you use throughout the match. Each play has a built-in chance of success and a built-in range of yards that it will get if it is a success. The performance of your players in the 3 matchups against the defensive team can shift your success rate by up to 30%. So we expose all of this as a pie chart and UI that tells the player whether any special skills are in play. You can even expand it to get even more information. You could play it just by looking at the numbers, but the intention was for an American football fan to be able to look at it all and intuit sensible plays based on their American football knowledge. More about that later. When the user plays another team, they don't play that team's human owner. They play a simulated. They play against an AI. But we wanted the AI to feel human, and it was really important that the AI opponents would make decisions that feel like good human football. And that presented a small challenge because I was not the only football noob on the team. Very few of us had a strong background in American football. Our lead designer from Utah became our de facto expert, and he gave us homework. We all had to sit down and binge watch a lot of football, eat a lot of nachos and hot dogs, and wear cowboy hats, because it was important that we not only got a feel for the mechanics, but also for the culture and mythology of the game. We had to retune our bullshit detectors so that we could see what bad football looked like before we tried to build good football. And then we scoured Wellington for as many football players and football fans as we could find, and brought them in right from the start of development to bounce ideas and prototypes off, and eventually built a product that our users generally seem to feel gets it right. For a game with as few moving parts as Rivals does, again, sort of only 5 offence, 5 defence, 8 plays, we could take a brute force approach and just have the offensive AI run through all available plays and silently test them, pairing up the opposing players, checking to see who's coming out on top, activating any special skills, and calculating the chance of success and the expected yardage that play might get. We then assign a heuristic score for each play based on the predicted average yardage, and adjust that score up and down depending on the game state. So if they don't have very far that they have to get, we don't need the big plays. But if they have to make at least 6 yards, short plays are absolutely out of the question. The really low scoring plays are then removed from consideration, so we never get a situation where a user would say, that's ridiculous, no coach would ever make that call. And then we could use a weighted random function to choose one of the better plays. We found the semi-random heuristic is actually pretty good at picking plays that feel right to human players. The human players feel like the AI is making sensible decisions, and this feeling is reinforced when the human players make their defensive decisions based on their predictions of what the AI is going to do. In essence, because the AI is predictable, the humans feel that the AI is good. But it's a weighted random, so sometimes the AI comes up with a surprise. Sometimes it goes for one of the less optimal but still reasonable plays. And the humans like this too. They feel like the AI is playing mind games and psyching them out and tricking them. And just that little bit of unpredictability makes them feel like their defensive choices are a bit dangerous. It makes them question whether to fully commit to a defence. The defensive AI works similarly. It silently tests the offensive team's plays, the offensive team's plays that it knows about, and then makes its own weighted random selection. And then it chooses the defence for that random selection. The intention here is for the AI coach to feel like he's looked at the situation from your point of view, figured out what he thinks you're going to do, and made his defensive choice. And yeah, to create AI escalation and to make it fair, the AI defence is only allowed to look at the plays that you've already used. We still got accusations that we were cheating. For a perfect action AI, an action game could be thought of as a turn-based game, but with at least 30 turns per second. And on each of those turns, the AI gets to evaluate the whole world state, adjust its behaviour accordingly. Because humans take about a fifth of a second to perceive stuff, the human player would effectively be taking at least 6 turns to notice changes to the game state. And they would end up spending most of their turns passing or just doing the same thing as the last turn. The AI would have a major advantage. Perfect AIs with major advantages aren't much fun. It's really hard to outsmart an AI that is playing at least 6 turns ahead of you and has unlimited access to fancy maths like dot products and square roots. As developers, it's up to us to make the AI outsmartable by adding compelling flaws. So let's consider shot leading. Let's have a drink. Say you've got a weapon that shoots projectiles at an observable speed, like a rocket launcher or a sack of grenades, and say you've got a moving target that you're trying to hit. The maths is pretty easy to do. It's been around for 300 years. And if you're a computer, you can do that maths many times per frame without much difficulty. Trouble is, we know it doesn't work like that in real life, where by real life, I mean movies. If the hero runs away, the baddies always shoot where he was. Isaac Newton was very, very clever, but Rambo saved a bunch of POWs and blew up a helicopter gunship with a rocket launcher, so people trust Rambo. So what do you do? At least on the easier difficulties, where the goal is a cinematic narrative rather than a hardcore challenge, you can have your AI be a bit slow on the uptake. For instance, you can have your AI maintain a perceived velocity vector that it uses to lead shots, and have this vector lerp to the player's actual velocity over a second or two. Providing the player keeps on changing direction, the AI never manages to get an accurate read on the way that they're moving, and the player can feel like they're dodging bullets, which is heroic. Say you're hunting a dude, and you have that sack of grenades from the previous slide, and you see him run behind I'm really sorry, I'm not an artist. It is, yes. No. Yeah, dude runs behind cover. What do? Do you throw a grenade where he was when at the last sighted position? Or do you assume that he's kept on running for a little bit after he's gone behind cover and throw a grenade to a point a couple of metres from that last known position in that last known velocity? Or do you assume that he's going to keep on running, come out the other side and aim a rocket just as he emerges? Shot leading is... No, it's not shot leading. Extrapolating unseen movement is a sensible thing to do, and players often feel that it's unfair. If they've hidden behind something and then a grenade hits them right in the head and your AI can't see them, they will think that you're cheating. It won't occur to them that they have been incredibly predictable and stopped exactly where you expect them to. If you want to have a cinematic experience, sometimes you're better off making sure that grenade drops near the player. This sometimes means cheating and just doing your prediction, checking to make sure that the player isn't too close to that prediction, and if they are, just shifting it back a wee bit to make it feel fair. This keeps the pressure on and makes them feel vulnerable, but it still empowers them for sensible actions like seeking cover. But what if you want your AI actors to seem like they're a bit smarter than a brigade of generically swarthy 80s extras? What if you want them to cut the hero off at the pass and shut down all of their options by blowing up their hiding places? Well, movies teach us that as well. Baddies love to talk about their plans. Have them call out to you, "So, Captain Hero, you think you can hide from me? Did you forget I was raised from childhood in this lair and I know all of the hiding places and I have a sack full of grenades? If you tell the player how the AI is doing the thing that feels like cheating, it doesn't feel like cheating anymore. If you can make sure that the player knows you're playing fair, and you can give them some hints about what they might like to do to stay a little bit ahead of the AI. So if you've detected that they keep on doing the same thing, like crawling into ducts to get away from you, you can have your AIs discuss it with each other. So, no, she's gone in the lava ducts again. You know what, I'm right by the lava pumps. I'm just going to turn them on. So boss fights. For a feature like a boss fight, you've got a few other decisions to make. And there are several different axes of how you can change up gameplay, and finding the perfect balance is a real challenge. So familiarity versus innovation. If you add in too many new mechanical features at once, it creates a disconnect for the player, who suddenly feels like they're playing a completely different game. There's a cognitive cost to learning new stuff, and especially when you have to learn it under pressure. And you don't want your player to have to invest too much in learning your boss and not enough in appreciating them and enjoying the experience. But you've got to change something up because you want it to feel special and unique. Challenge versus accomplishment. So you want the player to feel like their abilities are being pushed, but ultimately you want to make sure they do succeed, because if they can't beat your boss without resorting to the internet, they're going to come away from the experience feeling disappointed. It's not going to make them feel heroic and empowered. So if beating the boss means revisiting old gameplay techniques that they may have forgotten, you might have to get a bit creative and have an NPC phone in some hints when you detect that they are struggling. So, intelligence versus predictability. Especially when you've presented your boss to the player as a tactician, you want her gameplay to feel realistic and intelligent. And she should react to what the player is doing in a believable manner. However, she also needs to be at least a bit predictable so that the player can outsmart her. I've pointed out a whole bunch of problems here, and I haven't actually done anything to find solutions. And that's because it's going to be different for every game. It depends a lot on the target audience for the game. It depends a lot on the point in the game's arc where it takes place. And you want to get your boss fights in as early as possible and iterate on them in order to be able to get a feel for what your players think is right. And remember, if you do build something that's really punishing and far too difficult to leave in, you don't have to throw it all the way away. You can rip it out of that core experience, but then you can add it back in for a new game plus, which will create extra challenge and extra value for your really hardcore players who are often your most vocal fans. This has gone so much faster than I thought, which suggests that I had far too much coffee and I've been talking really fast. So, the TLDR. We can all go home or just go out drinking, or both. Drink at home. Your AIs have to seem like they're playing fair. If your AI feels like it's cheating, then you can use gameplay or UI or vocalization to show that you're actually playing fair. Computers can traverse decision space in ways and at speeds that humans just can't hope to. So if you want your AI to feel human, you have to sometimes make non-optimal choices. You can use randomness, but you should do it sparingly to create a fear of unpredictability. You don't want your AI to actually be unpredictable, because then your player has nothing that they can learn. And iterate lots. Give yourself lots and lots of time to iterate and test your AI against your users, not only to tweak the balance, but also to find out what they think is cheating. Oops. All right, questions. Let's fill the rest of the time with questions. Oh, actually, no, we'll start with a joke. This is a programmer joke, and it's a dad joke. My son loves it. Doesn't really understand it, but he loves it. What's the Incredible Hulk's favourite vector operation? Cross product. Sorry. Questions? Yeah.
Would you approach dumbing down the AI in chess, and if so, what would you do?
See, now chess would be one of those most hardcore, masochistic, elite players sort of situations. Actually, that's not true, is it? Because most players can't play chess at the level of crazy neural network Google AIs. So, yes, I would dumb down the chess AI, especially for me.
Do you have any ideas about anything that comes to mind of how you'd approach that?
Well, the modern AIs are all based on machine learning, and so we don't know exactly how they're making the gameplay moves that they actually do. But if we look back sort of 10 years, the chess computers were designed to look a few turns ahead. Humans can usually play about 6 turns ahead if they're high level. So the good AIs would just have to play 7 turns ahead. The really good AIs would play about 9 turns ahead, and also play for you and work out how many turns ahead you were playing, and then start laying traps based on knowing how far ahead you were playing, and that there was this buffer here. But that was that age of chess AI is gone now. Yes.
So you've got it so that when a human is versing AI, you want the AI to feel human.
Mm-hmm.
What about when you have situations where you might want AI versing other AI? Would you still attempt to make them feel human, or would you have separate behaviours so that the AI feel like they're kind of acting human, but they're obviously able to kind of predict one another? I don't really even know what I'm asking. I just know that.
That's a good question, and it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to test your AI by beating other AIs, then no, it all goes out the window. Just full-on alien robot.
Example, Halo. So you know when like the Covenant would verse
Yep.
the Flood, and then you
Yep.
run in as Master Chief and shit had hit the fan and all
Yep.
that sort of stuff, but they still felt intelligent in the way that you were a concern, but you weren't the primary concern. Like, yeah, there was
Yes.
other enemies in the room, basically.
So in Rival Stars, based on similar games we had done before, we knew that players would play the game for a while, and then they would decide that they liked the coach level stuff, the management level stuff more. And so we had to make sure that we had an autoplay option. And in the autoplay, basically, you're replaced by another AI. And so you've got AI versus AI, both following exactly the same rules. And it comes down to, did you build a team and playbook that works better with the AI than the other player did? And that's when we want to make sure that the AI plays like a human, because we don't want you to sit there looking at the autoplay going, what the fuck is that doing? Why is that working? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, sure. I suppose going off of the chess question before, a way to go about that would be to look at chunking, because a lot of grandmasters don't really look ahead very far. They actually just say, all right, this is the set of chunks that I see on the board, this is the best outcome, because they just know essentially just blocks rather than like a big set of data saying, all right, let's just do a big pathfinding or go through this and say, oh, this is the best route. But they just say, all right, this is a good one. And what you can say is, per chunk, you can have a level of difficulty or whatever. So like if you just say, oh, I'm going to move a pawn up, that could be the very basic novice level chunk. You just keep moving pawns up, but you're always going to lose. But if you then say, oh, I'm going to do this very specific maneuver because I've seen the last couple of actions, given this, the board has it set up this way, you have a very expressible kind of difficulty that you can train, but you can also pull back as well.
Yeah.
Because that, like, you can always go powerful with that, really powerful, and then just obliterate anyway. But it's really hard to say, I want to go really powerful, just just slightly under.
Yeah, and you can do this with action games as well. You can take scripts and modules of things. So advance up this side, jump over this rock and make a beeline for blah blah blah, and just string them together. So the AI can be a bunch of human-like behaviours that it just packs together in a way that hopefully continues to look human. Yeah.
I really like your example of having the AIs get expected to learn what the player's actual roles be versus real mistake. Do you have any other practical tips that are making AI seem more human along those lines?
More examples of making AIs seem human that I forgot to put into my talk. And this is what we sort of did a lot with Mr. Freeze. So thought about for each thing that Batman, I didn't prepare this, so it's cool as far as my interpretation of what I was told goes. If I'm wrong, then Warner's lawyers are a lot more powerful than my lawyers, which are imaginary. So for each of the things that Batman could do, we had to come up with a way that Freeze could learn from them. So the line launcher attack, we said, okay, well that makes a noise. So after Mr. Freeze has been knocked down by a line launcher attack once, then we'll have him say, what's that noise? And turn around whenever you use the line launcher. Whenever if you do an attack from a railing, then Freeze will say, okay, well I'm going to destroy all of the railings. And from that point onwards, whenever he has line of sight to a railing, he freezes it up and makes it unusable. The silent takedown from behind one was a bit ropey. We had him start spraying out ice crystals behind him, and if you stood on them, they would go crackle, crackle, and he would turn around and see you. Mostly it came down to shooting things. Yes? Good? Can't think of anything else? Yes?
With the advent of things like the Unity ML Agents package, where do you see the future of AI going? Do you see it continuing to be sort of handwritten, or do you see more sort of imitation or reinforcement learning models being implemented?
So this comes back to the chess thing. So, reinforcement learning, backpropagation, artificial neural networks are really cool and really powerful and really good at learning stuff, but they don't learn things the way that humans do. And so it's really hard to have a neural network AI, to have machine learning learn how to do something in a way that seems human. It's doable. It needs a lot of training, and it needs a lot of computation. And it's usually cheaper to find a programmer to just go and sit down with the designer and agree on what feels like sensible behavior in these situations. But it depends on your goal. If it's a cinematic game, if it's all about the story, then yeah, do it the old-fashioned dumb way. If it's about making something that's actually really experimental and rad, yeah, machine learning. All right, think we're done? Nope.
So you mentioned before about making AIs do suboptimal moves to make them sort of a little bit edgy, try to play mind games. Did you find that having them just pick a sort of random suboptimal move was as effective as trying to create like a persona for them? Like, oh, this guy's a real rough and tumble guy, so he's going to try a more aggressive move.
We did experiment with allowing the player to kind of have some handles on how aggressive or defensive they wanted their AI to be when someone else was playing against them. But it was really easy to break the AI. Like we'd spend a lot of time balancing it, and it turned out that pretty much all the handles we opened up managed to make it so much worse. Yeah. So it wasn't that we chose to do something suboptimal and then randomly chose one of the suboptimal options. It's just that we, had assigned us a score for each move, and this one's the best score. It's going to happen the most often. This one's not stupid, but it's not the best. But if they're expecting that, maybe this one is the best. Yeah. Yes.
And again, going off of that, given the standard planner when it comes to like discretizing a problem space, if you've got, for example, moves, because you might not know the best set of actions that qualify a certain goal. So that, like, let's say you'll take down Mr. Freeze by like doing A, B, and C, given D happened, and etc. Lots of different goals, etc.
Mhm.
And sub goals. If you've got multiple agents, can you then, for example, even just have almost like a state per agent? Well, not a state, but like a set of attributes per agent that say each problem space has slightly tweaked values that will then give it slightly different and unique behaviors, but still have the exact same set of actions. So that, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
If you want to create a shared experience, not like real-time shared, but something where someone can play the game, have an experience, and go and talk to somebody else, and like discuss the things that happen to both of them, then you probably want to err more on the side of crafting the AI to always be the same-ish. If you want something that people will play over and over again, then you try something crazy like that. Yes.
Did you design the football game's AI to feel like it was thinking multiple turns ahead, or does it feel like it's just each turn is coming up with the next event?
Just in the turn. Like it's really dumb. We have special skills that can be activated by the player when they want to activate them. The AI doesn't even think about it. It's like, oh, skills available, go. That one too, go. Doesn't matter that they're not compatible. Just go crazy. And it doesn't think about, I need to save this play for like, because all of our plays have a cooldown. Some plays cool down faster than others, but it doesn't think I need to save this for later. It just evaluates it as it goes. We tried going smarter, and players couldn't understand what the AI was doing. So we found that the AI's ability to just really accurately boil the whole game to state down to numbers gave it an advantage. We had to pull that advantage back a wee bit by making it a wee bit stupid. I'm quite good at making things stupid. Yes?
Do you have a way of tuning the AI so that you're going to have players like lots of skills, right? How do you like pick a point and be like, this is a good point at which a player will almost always beat the AI? Players want the skills.
We didn't. The AI always plays at the same level. We balance against player skill by changing the level of the team that they're playing against. So it's just got weaker players. There was someone else. Yes?
What metrics do you use to evaluate your AI?
To evaluate my AI,
Successful AI?
QA. I get QA to do it for me. So when I started out in the games industry, I detested QA. All they did was poke holes in the neat stuff that I did. They were almost as bad as the marketing people who kept on demanding stuff at times that didn't suit me. It took years to realise that the marketing people were the ones who actually made money for the company so they could give it to me. And QA were the people who covered my ass by finding all the things that I did wrong. QA are neat. It's at Rocksteady I made it a policy to, whenever we went into a period of crunch, to do some baking for QA and to explicitly say, this is a bribe. I want you to spend more time on my bugs so that I can be more effective. I think it worked. How are we doing?
Oh, we're fine.
Oh, cool. Yes.
When it comes to goal situations, particularly with boss fights, how do you
Depends on the boss. How do you divide the attention in a co-op game? I guess that's one way that you can give the boss personality. You can have a boss who's just an absolute jerk, who will, as soon as they see a weakness, just keep on pounding on the weak one, and force the strong one to try to jump in the way and take the shots and things like that. Or if you want the experience to be that the two players or more players are all in there right to the end, you can have the boss sort of start to focus more on the one who hasn't taken the damage. And you can lie to the player. So, like the Batman games, Batman's health bar is not linear. It looks like it is, but it's not. The closer you get to death, the more damage you can take before you drop down a little bit more. So it's all about cheating, but not letting people know that you're cheating. Yes.
How good do you think that AI is good, at replicating player behaviour and personality-wise? So, like, one of the driving games has the driving task system where you race against other players' personalities, driving styles.
I guess for a driving game, you can group the behaviours reasonably coarsely. You can detect that someone is, I guess, trying to stay with the pack right until the end, whether they're doing really awesome drifts all the time. You can notice the things that look cool to players and make sure that's biased towards for the AI. But I haven't done AI for a driving game, so I'm just making stuff up. Not that that's any different from anything else in this talk. Yes?
Do you have any tools or frameworks or anything
For modelling what, sorry?
for modelling and designing your AI?
Yes, paper and pens. I've tried going clever before in building systems that extract rules from like behaviours as I do them on the fly, but I've generally found that players like it more when they can understand the AI, and in order for that to happen, you need to be able to write down the AI in words, not numbers. So that's my approach. It's worth saying I'm not actually a very good programmer. I would say that the majority of juniors that I work with are much stronger technically than I am. Where I'm effective is that I've had a lot of experience of doing things wrong, of making really terrible mistakes. So I can now see those mistakes coming a mile off, and so I can help other people avoid them. Yes.
Awesome. Could you comment at all on the Arkham games when you have a bunch of thugs around you? It feels very vaguely like they're all connected. Like, how did that balance get figured out? Like the AI knowing about each other?
So I didn't have much to do with the combat AI. I think that that there is a limit to how many can engage Batman at once, and so the choreography is kind of driven by the player. The player tells the baddies what they need to be doing at what time, gives them opportunities to attack. I got my job at Rocksteady because, actually two reasons. One, I had Flash experience and they were doing Scaleform, and hardly anyone had Flash experience who was a programmer. And I'd written an essay for a design role that I applied for at a Dutch studio, where they asked me to write down the top 5 best games ever. And one of them, not the top one, but one of them was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. And I talked about the cool thing about Prince of Persia, is that it's really, really generous with the interface. It interprets your inputs in the most favourable way possible to make you feel awesome. And I didn't know that Rocksteady was making a Batman game and using Prince of Persia Sands of Time as the inspiration for the combat. But that got me in the door. And then they asked, have you ever had a disagreement with management? And I said, yes, because back at She Interactive, working on Jackass, there was a brown water rafting minigame where you're sitting on an inflatable mattress in a sewer and you're paddling. And I felt really strongly, because this was for PSP, that it needed to be tank controls. Up, down on the left, triangle, X on the right to paddle. And yeah, I had a really loud argument with the managing director, Mario at the time. And then, yeah, Rocksteady asked me, and were you right? I was like, no, I was not right. That would have been terrible. That would have been a game for me. It took ages to learn that the games for me aren't going to sell to anybody else but me. And, you know, I want it free from the company for making it. I got a bit off track. Did you ask again?
It's pretty much answered it, just about the AIs in Arkham being sort of like vaguely connected to each other.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Good work. Yes.
I've been told many times that it's really hard to make an AI that seems, beatable but still challenging. But games like Dark Souls have tried to create an AI that's near impossible to beat to give the greatest sense of reward when you beat it. What would you say would be harder to make, an AI that's near impossible to beat or one that's just challenging?
I don't think that one is necessarily more difficult than the other. Creating an AI that's impossible to beat is easy, generally. So making it nearly impossible to beat means scaling it back a little way, and then making it challenging means scaling it back a wee bit further, and then making it so I can beat it is back down here a little bit. Computers just have such an advantage in terms of reaction speed, and especially when it's a boss that has different abilities to the player anyway. They're playing a completely different game, and you can scale the boss just by scaling the damage that they do with their weapons, or you can increase the time that they take to make decisions. You can decrease the accuracy with which they know where the player is. You can decrease their armour. I don't think one's more difficult than the other. Sorry, that's not really a useful answer. Probably got time for one more, yeah?
Just a quick question. If you can, let's just suppose you can make an almost impossible Arkham Targets boss fight, for example, and then you make a really very generally super easy boss fight, like to a point where it's easy, done. But you create it in such a way that you could interpolate the states, so you could actually then scale the AI based on how the player's been beating the mobs before or whatever. Have you ever experienced any kind of adaptive AI in games? Because from what I've experienced, they've all been either very poor or just not done well.
I mean,
because Dark Souls never changes.
yeah. I mean, Shadow of Mordor does that to an extent.
Yeah.
I think the difficulty.
At a certain ability level, you can just flounce anything.
Yeah. The difficulty is deciding what a player's skill outside of a boss fight translates to once they hit the boss fight. And if you get it wrong, then you have a really shitty boss fight, and your player churns and goes away, and what was supposed to be a really exciting and rewarding and unique experience is instead the thing that makes them leave the game. Like most of the bosses for me in Wind Waker. Yeah. Which I've been playing with my son on the GameCube. Except for the bosses, it's great. All right, we're done. Cool. Thank you.